I'm a firm believer that if you don't want something done to you, don't do it to somebody. Now, if you do something to somebody non-intentionally, completely different. I don't believe that you get karma for doing something non-intentionally. Now, my 5-year-old self used to always, my 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old, 8-year-old child mind would always be like, anytime something bad happened to me, I was like, oh, well, it must have been because of this. I always believed in cause and effect. Now, as a grown woman, I believe if you do something unintentionally, you're not going to get karma for that. But if you do something intentionally and it's not kind or not right, and it's just out of being evil, then, that karma should come back to you. But it's all about how you play your chips and how you use your intentions. Now, somebody who knows you didn't do something intentionally, who uses that against you and manipulates it, and then tries to shame you for it, because everybody has some sort of guilt or shame from whether it be their childhood, their young adult life, or their mature adult life. Everybody has something that they're not proud of, right? Anybody who knows psychology and understands how they can manipulate somebody's mindset and use shame in their favor to control you, now that is just fucking evil. That is just evil. That is inexcusable. That is not acceptable. Huge difference. Now, if you don't know that and then, life just starts unraveling and shit happens, well then, life lessons. But intentional, not acceptable. And some people don't learn lessons the first time. Some people have to experience things a plethora of times in many different fashions with different variables to be able to actually learn a lesson. And that's the crazy thing about life, is the circle of life, right? Like when they say everything comes around full circle, well, it does. History does and does not repeat itself. It's learning what you need to learn from history or from patterns or from cycles for yourself, for the betterment of human consciousness, and then being able to understand that, decipher it, predict it, see ahead of it, see through it, and then educate about it and move forward from a place of understanding and intent, creating a better future and outcome. And this is with all things in life. This is with all humans. This is with all history facts. This is world history. This is with the presidency. This is with the government. This is with religion. This is with the United States of America. This is with literally, family cycles. And it can be with negative things and positive things. It could be with health and unhealth. But it's science, it's life, it's reality, it's evolution. It is pure life. It is energy, it is matter. And the more you understand it, and the more you realize how you can take one concept and apply it to other concepts in your life, the smarter and more intelligent you become, and the faster you can grow, and the less mistakes and hardships you'll find yourself having to deal with. And sometimes this can be a lot to unravel, but the more basic you can view things and the more simpler format you can understand things, the easier it is to explain things on a larger picture. And a lot of it is comparison. And teaching that is actually relatively easy if you start with youth at a very young age. Like for my son, I turned everything into, I taught it from a perspective of where it was relatable. Like, okay, well, look at this as you're playing a video game, and I would, go into his characters so he could not only understand, but have an emotional attachment to where he could understand why you should care about things that create a specific outcome. If we can teach that to children all over the world to where they understand, what a incredibly different world we would live in 20 years. And, and the reality is human consciousness is flawed, but maybe it's flawed on purpose. You know, I believe that everything is to view things, everything positive and purposeful. So even when something negative happens, I believe that there's a positive that needs to come from it. And whether it's a lesson, whether it's a blessing, whether it's, who knows? But I believe that there's always something positive that needs to come from everything, even if it's a death or war. What was I saying? But there, oh yeah, human consciousness, it is absolutely flawed. And it is flawed because of the simple fact that humans are not always turned on. Our brains are not always on. We do go on, people do go onto autopilot or revert back to old behavioral patterns or old, ancestral ways. Like there is no perfect. There is nobody who's 100,000% on all of the time. People go into sedentary state all the time. They go into autopilot. Just like the apps on your phone in the background will sleep. Well, the human mind will do that. So if you're not consciously aware of your posture all the time, it'll sleep. If you're not consciously aware, if you've trained yourself to zone out when important things are happening, or if you've been, and it's not always trauma induced. Everybody's always like, oh, it's trauma. Oh, it's abuse. Oh, it's from trauma. Well, trauma doesn't necessarily have to be something negative. It can also just be a pattern that your body or your brain has been conditioned to, that it starts to do. Sometimes I just blow myself away with how smart I am when I'm explaining things, because then I have like a million tiny little aha moments, and then I'm just like, how do I explain all of this? But it's so cool. But that's just life. So the point is, give yourself grace, choose to evolve, choose to learn from your own behavioral patterns, choose to see the good in everything you do, but choose to also try to understand why you do things. Because if you're doing something for an evil reason, only you will know that. And somebody who has lying tendencies will even know when they're lying to themselves. Deep down, they'll know if they're lying to themselves. Somebody who doesn't have evil tendencies, deep down, they just know. They just know. And sometimes people can be so fearful of what they don't want to be, they can drive themselves into paranoia. So don't be any of those, but just be aware, just be mindful. Learn yourself, learn life, learn patterns, learn cycles, but always try to see things for the good and the positive and the lesson, and just keep moving forward, and you will always continue to evolve for the better.